The cafe was already full when she stepped behind the counter for the afternoon shift, the kind of busy that felt polished rather than chaotic. Soft jazz drifted through hidden speakers, glasses clinked lightly, and conversation stayed low, restrained by the unspoken rules of expensive places. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows and caught the edges of marble tables and gold-trimmed menus. Everything in the room whispered money. She adjusted her apron, rolled her shoulders once, and moved forward. She had learned to read rooms like this. The ones where people pretended kindness but expected obedience. Where smiles were currency and silence was assumed. She moved with calm precision, her steps smooth, her posture upright, her voice steady when she greeted each table. Some customers barely looked at her. Others looked too long. At the far side of the cafe, a man sat alone, legs stretched out as if space belonged to him. His suit was tailored perfectly, dark and sharp, his watch heavy enough to catch the light every time he lifted his wrist. He noticed her immediately. Not with curiosity. With assessment. The first time she passed his table, she felt his eyes track her. The second time, he leaned back and smirked. The third time, he cleared his throat loudly enough to stop her. "Excuse me," he said, voice smooth, practiced. She turned, professional smile in place. "Yes, sir? You've walked past 3 times," he said. "Still haven't asked if I'm enjoying myself? I can take your order now if you're ready." He chuckled. "Straight to business. I like that. But you could loosen up a bit. This place isn't a factory floor." She met his gaze, unblinking. "What would you like to order?" He leaned forward slightly. "Depends. What do you recommend, personally?" The pause lingered just long enough to be deliberate. A woman at the next table glanced over, then quickly looked away. She didn't take the bait. "The grilled salmon is popular," she said, pen hovering over her notepad. "Is it?" His eyes flicked over her face, her hair, her hands. "Maybe you could convince me." She straightened a fraction. "Sir, if you're ready to order, I can help. Otherwise, I'll give you a moment." That earned a laugh. Not embarrassed. Amused. "All right," he said. "Bring me the salmon. And don't rush. I'm not in a hurry." She wrote it down, nodded once, and turned away. As she walked back toward the kitchen, she felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Not fear. Experience. She had seen this type before. Men who mistook service for invitation. Men who believed money rewrote rules. The cafe hummed on. Orders went out. Plates returned. Laughter rose and fell. When she brought his food, he looked pleased, as if she delivered something personal rather than a plate. "See," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Wasn't so hard." She placed the plate down carefully. "Enjoy your meal." He didn't pick up his fork. "You didn't tell me your name." "I don't need to," she replied evenly. His smile thinned. "You don't get many chances like this. I could make your life easier." The words were casual. The meaning wasn't. She leaned back just enough to put space between them. "I'm here to work. And I'm offering opportunity." He tapped the table with one finger. "You know who I am?" She shook her head. "And it doesn't matter." That seemed to surprise him. For a moment, something sharper crossed his face. "You should be careful," he said quietly. "This place survives on people like me." A few nearby customers had gone quiet. The tension crept outward, subtle but unmistakable. She held his gaze. "This place survives because people treat each other with respect." He scoffed. "Respect is earned. Then start earning it," she said. The silence that followed was heavy. The man's chair scraped as he stood abruptly. "You're being rude," he said, loud enough now for others to hear. "Do you talk to all customers like this?" She didn't raise her voice. She didn't step back. "Only the ones who cross the line." His jaw tightened. "You think you can embarrass me in front of everyone?" She glanced around the cafe. Faces were turned toward them now. Watching. Waiting. "I think," she said calmly, "that you've said enough." I'm asking you to leave. The room froze. A woman near the window gasped. Someone near the counter muttered something under their breath. The manager looked up from the register, eyes wide, hands frozen mid-motion. The man laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You can't be serious. I am, she said. Your behavior violates our policy. You're no longer welcome today. He stared at her, as if trying to decide whether this was a joke. Do you have any idea who you're talking to? She nodded once. A customer who's being asked to leave. The color rose in his face. I could buy this cafe. Then you can leave it, she replied. For a second, it looked like he might shout. Instead, he grabbed his jacket and stood fully, towering over her. This isn't over, he said, lowering his voice. You just made a very expensive mistake. She didn't flinch. Please exit. The door slammed behind him, rattling the glass. The cafe erupted into whispers. She stood still for a moment, heart pounding, then turned and continued toward the kitchen as if nothing had happened. Her hands shook slightly as she set the tray down, but she forced them steady. She had done the right thing. She knew it. The manager rushed in after her. What were you thinking? He hissed. Do you know who that was? I know what he did, she said. He's trouble, the manager said. People like him don't get told no. She met his eyes. Then someone should start. The manager opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Outside, a low sound began to build. A distant thrum, barely noticeable at first. What is that? Someone asked from the dining area. The sound grew louder. Stronger. The windows vibrated faintly. She stepped back into the cafe and looked toward the entrance. Shadows passed across the glass. The air itself seemed to shift. Customers stood from their chairs, drawn toward the windows. The manager swallowed. That can't be for us. The thrum deepened, unmistakable now. Rotors. Powerful. Close. Her gaze fixed on the door as the sound filled the room, drowning out conversation, rattling cups and nerves alike. Outside, something enormous was descending. And she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her chest, that the man she'd thrown out hadn't left alone. The sound didn't fade. It grew heavier, louder, pressing against the walls of the cafe until it felt like the air itself was vibrating. Glasses rattled on tables. A spoon tipped over and clinked against a saucer, the sound sharp in the sudden silence that followed. Someone laughed nervously. Is that a helicopter? She stood near the counter, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the front windows. The shadow outside slid across the floor, dark and massive, swallowing the sunlight that had moments ago filled the room. Customers drifted closer together, drawn by curiosity and unease. Phones came out. Whispers spread like a ripple through water. The manager wiped his palms on his trousers and hurried to her side. This is bad, he murmured. This is really bad. She didn't respond. Her pulse was loud in her ears, but her face remained composed. She had learned that fear showed quickest when people expected it. The helicopter descended just beyond the cafe's outdoor seating area. The roar softened but didn't disappear, a constant reminder of weight and power hovering just outside the door. A gust of wind pushed against the windows, fluttering napkins and sending a chill through the room. The door swung open. The young man from earlier stepped inside, his confidence sharpened now, polished by the spectacle behind him. He looked around slowly, drinking in the attention, the stares, the sudden shift in the room's balance. There it is, his expression said. You see who I am now. He spotted her immediately and smiled. Miss me? He asked loudly. No one laughed this time. The manager moved forward, voice tight. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's been an insult. The man cut in. And I don't let those slide. His gaze returned to her. You still want to stand by what you said? She stepped out from behind the counter. Yes. A murmur swept through the cafe. You're stubborn, he said. I admire that. But stubborn people break easier. The manager grabbed her arm lightly. Please, he whispered. Just apologize. Say you didn't mean it. We can smooth this over. She looked down at his hand, then back up at his face. Let go. He hesitated, then did. I won't apologize for asking to be treated with respect, she said clearly. You were out of line. The man laughed again, but there was no humor in it. You hear that? He said, turning to the room. She thinks she gets to lecture me. A few customers shifted uncomfortably. A woman near the window crossed her arms. A man near the door frowned but stayed silent. You know, the man continued, I could have you fired in 5 minutes. She nodded. Then do it. That answer caught him off guard. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. You think you're brave, he said. But you're just disposable. The word hung in the air, ugly and heavy. Something inside the room changed. The tension sharpened, cutting deeper than before. The manager swallowed hard. She didn't mean any offense, he said quickly. She's a good worker. One of our best. We can handle this privately. The man ignored him. People like her forget their place, he said casually. That's the problem these days. A sharp intake of breath came from somewhere behind her. She felt it then. Not just the insult, but the weight of it. The old, familiar pressure of being reduced, minimized, reminded, publicly, of what others thought she should accept. Her voice didn't shake. My place, she said, is wherever I stand with dignity. The cafe was dead silent. The man stared at her, eyes narrowing. You really don't know when to stop. Neither do you, she replied. Outside, the helicopter blades slowed further. Footsteps approached the door, heavy and unhurried. The manager's face strained of color. Someone important is coming, he whispered. Please. Just this once. For everyone's sake. She looked at the customers. Some avoided her gaze. Others watched her with something like hope. Expectation. I've done nothing wrong, she said. The door opened again. This time, the presence that entered didn't need to announce itself. The room seemed to lean inward, instinctively aware of authority. An older man stepped inside, tall and composed, his hair silver, his posture relaxed in a way that came only from lifelong power. He surveyed the cafe slowly, eyes sharp but calm. The younger man straightened instantly. Dad! A collective gasp moved through the room. The older man didn't respond right away. His gaze moved from the scattered customers to the manager and finally settled on her. He studied her the way one might study a structure, looking for cracks, for strength, for truth. You're the one who asked my son to leave, he said. Yes, she replied. The manager rushed forward. Sir, we're very sorry for the inconvenience. She overstepped. Did she? The older man asked quietly. The manager faltered. I mean, what happened? The older man asked, eyes still on her. Before she could speak, the son cut in. She disrespected me. Embarrassed me in front of everyone. The older man raised a hand. The room went still again. He looked at her. Is that true? She met his gaze. I asked him to leave after he repeatedly harassed me. A murmur ran through the cafe. Phones lifted higher. The older man turned slowly to his son. Did you? The son scoffed. Come on. I was joking. She took it personally. The older man's jaw tightened slightly. Answer the question. The son hesitated. I didn't harass her. The older man nodded once, then turned back to her. Did he? Yes, she said. Multiple times. After being asked to stop. The silence that followed was suffocating. The older man exhaled slowly. You were right to stand your ground, he said. The words hit the room like a shockwave. The son stared at him. What? The older man didn't look at him. You embarrass yourself. That's not enough, the older man said sharply. You don't get to hide behind your name. He turned back to her. You could have stayed quiet. You didn't. That takes courage. The manager looked as if he might faint. The son's face flushed red. You flew here for this? I flew here, the older man said, because I don't tolerate behavior that puts this family to shame. He reached into his coat and pulled out a card, placing it gently on the counter in front of her. If you ever want to work somewhere that values integrity over fear, call me. The cafe erupted into stunned whispers. The son's voice cracked. You're offering her something? The older man finally looked at him. I'm offering her respect. The helicopter blades slowed to a stop outside, the sudden quiet almost deafening. She picked up the card, her expression unreadable. I'll think about it. The older man nodded. That's all I'd expect. As he turned to leave, the son followed, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. The door closed behind them, the echo lingering. The cafe remained frozen for a long moment. Then someone began to clap. Slow at first. Hesitant. Then louder, spreading from table to table until the room filled with applause. She stood there, heart racing, the card warm in her hand, knowing the hardest part wasn't over yet, but also knowing something had shifted. The world had watched her refuse to bow. And it wouldn't forget. The applause faded slowly, like a wave pulling back from shore. Conversations didn't resume right away. People stayed in their seats, glancing at her, at the door, at the space where power had just entered and exited the room. The cafe felt different now, lighter, but charged, as if something irreversible had happened. She slipped the card into her apron pocket and returned to the counter. Her hands moved automatically, wiping a surface that was already clean, straightening menus that hadn't shifted. Routine was grounding. Routine reminded her she was still here, still herself. The manager hovered nearby, pale and shaken. I didn't know, he said quietly. I swear. If I'd known who his father was. She stopped wiping and looked at him. It wouldn't have changed what he did. He hesitated. No. But things could have gone badly. They could have, she agreed. They didn't. He nodded, chastened. Take a break, he said. I'll cover. She considered it, then shook her head. I'm fine. Across the room, customers watched her with a new kind of attention. Not pity. Not curiosity. Respect. A woman at a corner table caught her eye and smiled, lifting her cup slightly in a quiet toast. She returned the smile before moving on. As she refilled a pitcher, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it at first, then felt it buzz again. When she checked it behind the counter, she saw messages stacking up, friends, cousins, an old coworker she hadn't spoken to in months. Are you okay? Is it true? I saw a video. That was you, right? Her stomach dropped. She opened one message and followed the link. There she was, framed perfectly, standing tall as the man ranted, her voice calm and unwavering. The helicopter's shadow swept across the floor in the background like something unreal. The clip cut just as the older man entered. Millions of views already. She locked the phone and slid it away, breath steadying. She hadn't asked to be filmed. She hadn't asked to be watched. But she'd known, standing there, that eyes were on her. That choice's echo. The door opened again. Not dramatically this time. Just the quiet chime above the frame. Two uniformed men stepped inside, scanning the room with professional detachment. The murmur returned, nervous this time. The manager stiffened. What now? They approached the counter. We're here to speak with you, one said, nodding to her. She stepped forward. About what? A complaint was filed, the man said. We need to take a statement. The room seemed to hold its breath again. She nodded once. Of course. They moved to a quieter corner, questions calm, methodical. She answered plainly. No embellishment. No defensiveness. She described the comments, the tone, the refusal to stop. She described asking him to leave. And you felt threatened? One asked. I felt disrespected, she said. And aware that he wouldn't stop. They exchanged a glance. Thank you, the other said. That's all we need for now. When they left, the cafe exhaled. The manager ran a hand through his hair. "This place is going to be on every feed by tonight." "It already is," she said softly. He looked at her. "Do you want to go home?" She thought of the card in her pocket. Of the eyes on her. Of the millions she didn't know watching from behind screens. "No," she said. "I want to finish my shift." Something in her voice made him nod without argument. Hours passed. The cafe emptied and filled again. Some customers came specifically to see her. Others pretended they didn't recognize her at all. She treated them all the same. Near closing time, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail. She stepped into the back hallway to listen. A calm, measured voice spoke. Polite. Direct. "This is an assistant calling on behalf of the gentleman you met earlier today. He'd like to speak with you tomorrow morning if you're willing. No pressure." She ended the call without responding, leaning back against the wall. Her reflection stared back at her from a stainless steel surface. Tired eyes, steady jaw. The same person she'd been that morning. And yet not. When her shift finally ended, she stepped outside into the cool evening air. The helicopter was gone. The sky was quiet. Cars passed. Life continued. Her phone buzzed again. A message this time. "We don't know each other, but thank you. My daughter watched that video with me. She asked if she could be like you." She closed her eyes briefly, emotion tightening her throat. This was the part no one prepared you for. The aftermath. The weight of being seen. At home, she sat at her small kitchen table, the card placed in front of her. She turned it over once, then again. Simple. Elegant. A name that carried power without shouting it. She thought about the offer. About what it might open. About what it might cost. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hello?" His voice was the same as before. Calm. Unrushed. "Thank you for taking the call." "I didn't say I would," she replied. A faint smile colored his tone. "You didn't hang up either." She leaned back in her chair. "What do you want?" "To understand," he said. "And to offer you a choice." "I already have choices," she said. "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm calling." Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable. Deliberate. "My son has never been told no," he said finally. "Today he learned. That matters." "That wasn't my job," she said. "No," he agreed. "But you did it anyway." She tapped the card lightly against the table. "I don't want to be a symbol." "Then don't be," he said. "Be yourself. Just somewhere your voice won't be punished." She closed her eyes. "What happens to him?" A pause. "Consequences," he said. "Real ones?" She considered that. "Good. I won't ask you to decide tonight," he continued. "Tomorrow. Or next week. Or never. The offer stands." The call ended. She sat there for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant sounds of the city. She thought about the cafe. About the applause. About the looks on people's faces when she didn't back down. She didn't know what she would choose. But she knew this. Whatever came next wouldn't be handed to her by a helicopter. It would be something she stepped into on her own terms. And somewhere, far above the city, forces were already shifting, waiting to see which direction she would walk. Morning arrived quietly, without spectacle. No helicopters. No crowds. Just pale sunlight slipping through the window and resting on the edge of her kitchen table where the cards still lay. She had slept little, not from fear but from thought. Every hour her mind returned to the same moment in the cafe, the same choice she had made without hesitation. The world had reacted. But the choice itself had been simple. She showered, dressed, and ate breakfast like any other day. She refused to treat this morning as different, even though she knew it was. Power tried to overwhelm you by convincing you everything had changed. She wouldn't give it that satisfaction. When she stepped outside, the city felt the same. People hurried past. Cars honked. A man argued with a coffee vendor on the corner. Life didn't pause for viral moments. Her phone buzzed as she walked. A message from the cafe manager. Whatever you decide, your job is here. And I'm proud of you. She stopped for a second, reading it twice, then typed back a simple thank you and continued on. The meeting wasn't held in a towering glass skyscraper or some guarded estate. It was in a modest office overlooking the river. Clean. Quiet. Intentional. When she arrived, she was greeted politely, without awe or assumption. No one asked her to wait. No one stared. He stood when she entered. You came, he said. I wanted clarity, she replied. They sat across from each other at a simple table. No assistants hovered. No pressure hung in the air. I won't dress this up, he said. My name opens doors. But I don't believe it should close mouths. She folded her hands. I don't want charity. Neither do I, he said. I want people who don't flinch when tested. She studied him for a long moment. Why me? Because you could have backed down, he said. You could have apologized. You didn't. And you didn't do it for applause. She exhaled slowly. Your son will learn, he interrupted calmly. Not from words. From loss. She raised an eyebrow. Loss? He's being removed from the company's public-facing roles, he said. No shortcuts. No protection. He'll start where accountability begins. She nodded once. That matters. I hoped you'd say that. Silence settled between them again. I won't ask you to leave your job, he said. I won't ask you to represent anything but yourself. If you want education, mentorship, opportunity, it's there. If you don't, you walk away unchanged. She leaned back, considering. I'll accept one thing, she said. Training. Skills. Not a spotlight. A small smile crossed his face. That's exactly what I wanted you to say. When she left the building, there was no waiting helicopter. Just the river moving steadily forward. Back at the cafe that afternoon, things felt different again. Not tense this time. Grounded. The manager had posted a new notice behind the counter. Clear. Firm. Respect wasn't optional. Several staff members noticed her reading it. Because of you, one whispered. She shook her head. Because it should have been there already. Customers treated her with care, some overly so. She accepted it politely but didn't linger in it. She refused to let admiration become another cage. Late in the afternoon, the door opened and someone she didn't expect walked in. The young man stood there, no entourage, no arrogance clinging to him this time. His shoulders were stiff, his eyes uncertain. The cafe went quiet. He approached slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. I'm not here to cause trouble, he said. She looked at him calmly. Then speak carefully. He nodded. I owe you more than an apology. I won't pretend I understand everything yet. But I understand this. I was wrong. The room waited. I won't ask forgiveness, he continued. I haven't earned it. I just wanted you to hear that I know I crossed a line. She studied him, searching for performance, for manipulation. She found none. Just discomfort. Gross first step. Then don't repeat it, she said. With anyone. I won't, he said. That's a promise I'll keep even when no one's watching. He left quietly. No drama. No excuses. A breath released across the cafe. As weeks passed, the story shifted. Headlines lost interest in spectacle and found meaning instead. Conversations changed tone. Policies were reviewed. Other workers spoke up, in restaurants, offices, places where silence had long been the rule. She began attending training sessions in the evenings. Not because she needed saving, but because she wanted expansion. She learned. She questioned. She challenged. And every time she entered a room, she did so exactly as she had that day, upright, calm, unafraid. One evening, long after closing, she stood alone in the cafe, lights dimmed, wiping the counter. The same counter where everything had begun. The manager locked the door and turned to her. "You changed this place," he said. She smiled faintly. "No," she replied. "I reminded it who it could be." Outside, the city moved on. Inside, something had settled into place. She hadn't gained power through money or status. She hadn't needed to be rescued or elevated above others. She had simply refused to be reduced. And that refusal echoed far beyond the cafe, long after the helicopter noise had faded, leaving behind something far more powerful than spectacle. A standard that could no longer be ignored.